had the unfortunate opportunity of meeting my ex from 2011 at a very unexpected place and an unexpected fashion. And then we got talking, and then she was asking a lot of questions. So she asked me, or she told me, I've heard that you'll be speaking at a public speaking program. And I said, yes. And then she said, what would you be talking about? I said, can you guess? And then she was like, how to lose a girl in a minute. I'm like, nah, it's a public speaking 101. I mean, try harder. And then she said, how to pass out in front of people. I said, nah. How to die in front of people. I said, nah. Like, I'm out of ideas. Now, this is the impression that people who knew me back 6 years ago would have of me. I remember in 2011, in April, when I had my first opportunity to speak in front of people, it was not a number like this. We had just about 5 people in a room. We're preparing for a debate competition against Presec Legon. I was not even part of the debate team, as in the speaking team or the speakers. I was head of research, and I was very comfortable in my position because I didn't want to come close to the speakers. But then, while we sat there, the debate master said, "Oh, Sosi, you've been helping us with a lot of material. We value your research, but I mean, we want to know how it sounds from your own mouth." And just like you, I was like, I mean, I'm head of research. Give me that respect. But then the teacher said, so get to the podium. It's part of the reasons why I don't really like these things. They remind me of 2011. And so I got to the podium, and then I was standing behind the podium, and then they were my friends. We had been practicing for more than weeks. But I stood in front of them, and it was a whole new environment. So as I stood in front of them, they looked at me and I looked at them, and I was supposed to deliver what I had. And I said, Mr. Chairman, panel of judges, gentlemen, because there was no lady. And I stood there. And I was thinking to myself, billions of thoughts whilst I stood in front of them and I was not speaking. Now, it's the same thing that would happen to you if you are genuinely afraid of public speaking, just like I was in 2011. You'd be thinking, how did I even get to this point? And then you start thinking, can somebody help me? I'm sure that's if we give someone the opportunity to stand in front of us right now, they'll probably stand there and be thinking. And then the next thought will be, oh, that guy in the corner, why is he looking at me like that? And then you probably start thinking, there's something wrong with my shirt. And then you think and think and think, and your final thought will be, well, if nobody will help me, I'll help myself. So you probably have the option, 2 options. You help yourself by still standing there, not caring about what will happen, and then you stare at everybody back because they're staring at you. Or the second option, like I did, you look at everybody and shamelessly walk away from the podium. Because you can't speak. You don't have the balls to speak. You don't have the confidence to speak. So what do you want to talk about? But helping yourself, self-help, comes in 2 ways. And I'm proud to say, when I decided to help myself in 2011, I did it in 2 ways. The first, well, I don't think you need to write this one. The first was deciding to walk away from the podium. That was the first way I helped myself. And the second was deciding that I was not going to allow any incident of the sort to happen to me in the future. And that was what helped me begin my journey with public speaking. So after all the things that happened in 2011 came all those announcements that Valerie was making. As Public Relations Officer of the University of Cape Coast Student Representative Council, I had the opportunity of addressing close to 3,000 students, freshmen, freshwomen, who had come into this university. And from 2011, where I couldn't speak to 5 people, I took the chance to speak to 3,000 people. And the lessons and the theories I'm going to share with you today are practical theories, practical lessons I have learned, not just some theories that can be found in books. At this juncture, I think you can start writing. So what is the first thing about your fear of public speaking? I want you to focus on me while you write. To overcome your fear of public speaking, the first thing you need to do is first to know that fear and to understand that fear. After deciding to overcome my fear of public speaking, the next thing I did was to be very active in the debating club. And while I was active in the debating club, I got the opportunity to represent my school at a public speaking competition. But the thing was, because I was head of research some years ago, the whole school thought, well, this guy knows something about public speaking, this guy knows something about debate. So they just pushed me to represent the school. But I had my own fears, but I didn't want anybody to know. So then that day came when I had to represent the school in the public speaking competition at the British Council. And a lot of things were running through my mind, running through my stomach. You'd see people, harmless people, who are just staring at you, waiting for information. And all of a sudden, they look different. They look like people from the Zulu tribe holding spears, getting ready to throw the spears at you. Who has ever had that feeling before? Well, I'm guessing you've probably not even taken the opportunity to speak in public. But then, if you're a novice speaker like I was, people, ordinary people, who you probably spoke to on your way to this place will begin to look like monsters, like your worst nightmare. And that was the way I felt. Some of the evidence of your fear of public speaking will manifest physically. Your mouth will begin to run dry. How many of you have felt that one before? Okay, I get it. Some of you are so shy, it's becoming quite difficult to even communicate, as in right here. We'll go on to address all of those issues. Public speaking, the fear of public speaking can be very strong and very pervasive. So your mouth will run dry. You begin to feel some butterflies in your stomach. Naturally, you will speak fast. When you ask a novice speaker why he or she was speaking fast, they'll tell you, oh, naturally I speak fast. No, nobody naturally speaks fast. If you are under pressure and if you are scared of your audience and you are not so comfortable with the material you are sharing, you are most likely to speak very fast. And there are some theories and there are some techniques you can use to address all of those issues. You'd also start to feel that your heart is beating faster. Like for instance, all of a sudden, the lecturer says, hey, you there, answer the question. Your heart begins to pump faster. I'm sure some of you can relate. I'm seeing people who are. And it's natural. I was talking to my friend back there when Valerie was doing her things. And when she said, she was about to ask a question, and then she said, all of a sudden, some people don't want to look at her. How many of us do that in class a lot? The teacher goes like, so what exactly is public speaking 101? And people start to look in their books. Oh, don't worry. I look on the ground. I don't look in my book, so mine is even worse than yours. So then, yes, your heart begins to beat faster. And chances are you're even going to have sleepless nights the day before. Because you're supposed to speak in public, you don't feel too comfortable about speaking in public. These and many more, people have their own unique ways of reacting to their fear of public speaking, which has been popularly coined as glossophobia. Now, quite in a funny way, Jeffrey Seinfeld once said that people fear a lot of things in this world, but statistics show that people fear public speaking more than they fear death. So he went on to further joke that, so for people seated here, people like you, human beings like you, would rather take the opportunity to be in the casket rather than to give the eulogy at the funeral. That's really messed up, isn't it? It goes a long way to show how people are so scared about public speaking. So while you sit there, I'm sure while I mentioned some of the symptoms and some of the signs I went through, I'm sure you have your own impression of the fear and the signals and the symptoms of your own fear of public speaking. For some people, that was the first time I'd ever seen something like that in class 6. A student was called before our class to read, and he was virtually shaking. You could see his knees shake. You could see his fingers shake. Like I don't know if you've seen that. Like that's part of the reasons why people prefer to use the podium so they can have their knees shake behind the podium. People have their own unique fears of public speaking. And first, you must know your fear, and you must accept your fear, and you must begin the journey to overcome that fear of public speaking. Public speaking is so important. Just like I showed you, someone became president, well, not entirely because of public speaking, but because of his own attitude and his personality, but largely because of public speaking, because he could encapsulate the history of the nation, the feelings of a nation in a 15-minute speech. And that is very amazing. The next thing we need to know is, what are the sources of your fear of public speaking? So if you have your knees shaking, if you have your mouth running dry, in some cases, you'd even have your voice getting smaller. And I don't know, if you missed the introduction session, then you probably didn't see it. But if you are here while Val tried to make all of us feel comfortable by asking you to mention your name and then your relationship status, you probably noticed that there was somebody who said, my name is Theophilus Sosi though, so I'm using my name. So what is your name and your relationship status? Theophilus Sosi. Yeah, I'm single. Some people are actually dating, but because of the fear of public speaking, they are single today. So the fear of public speaking can be so strong. But then we must know and understand what our sources of the fear are. There are two basic sources of the fear of public speaking. The first is your personality, and the second is uncertainty. So what about your personality? Some people are naturally shy. Some people naturally do not want to take the opportunity to stand in front of people. We can't blame them for that. And for such character traits, they are so pervasive, they are so strong, that you would even begin to notice them right from your childhood. So I noticed mine when I was as young as a kindergarten student. Back then, I would never take the opportunity to do the poetry recital. Probably cast your mind back to when you were in kindergarten. There was this girl, or there was this boy, who was always doing the poetry recital. And they would always get it right. There was this boy and this girl too, who wanted to do it, but they would always get it wrong. But they would always want to do it. And that was Theophilus Sosi. Didn't want to do it, wasn't going to get it right or wrong, was always going to be in the corner somewhere. Can you relate? Were you doing poetry recital when you were young? Okay. So your personality, and there are various people, very powerful public speakers, who have confessed that they used to have personalities of the sort. A very good example is America's favorite pastor, Joel Osteen, who gives very great sermons week in and week out, and he confessed that he's naturally a shy person, he's naturally reserved, but after the death of his father, John Osteen, he realized the importance and the necessity of taking over his father's church, and so he began the journey to understand public speaking. A good example also is Warren Buffett. His own stories claim that he noticed the importance of public speaking, signed on to a public speaking class, but upon noticing that they would have to introduce themselves, he ran out of the class. So just like you and the opportunity you took to introduce yourself, Warren Buffett at that age wasn't going to do that. Public speaking was so much of a pain, he feared he may even vomit even before he speaks in public. And I've seen people vomit at the sight of public speaking. I've seen people get sick. Maybe you've even noticed that before your presentation, before your big presentation, you probably feel sick. 6 years ago, that was a normal feeling for me. And the fear of public speaking is so strong, it never really changes, because no matter how strong a speaker you become, you'd always have that fear. If you watch most of Barack Obama's behind the scenes, most of the time before a very big speech, he's usually pacing up and down. It's a usual thing because you're building up energy, so much energy, and there are two ways you can use it. You can either allow the energy to get over you, or you can find ways of using that energy to your advantage. So like I was mentioning, two sources of your fear of public speaking. The first is your personality, which to a very large extent, you may not be able to do so much about because that is who you are, but then there are still some techniques you can use to minimize your fear of public speaking if indeed, naturally, your personality does not permit you to be a public speaker. The second is uncertainty. Now, naturally, before people begin to speak or before people enter the arena where they are supposed to speak, they are uncertain. They're asking themselves, what are they going to think of me? How are they going to judge me? And most of the time, people want to prepare for their public speeches after watching a speech like Obama's speech, and then they'll be like, how am I going to beat that? All of that uncertainty contributes to your fear of public speaking. It's more like you being told you're going to be thrown into a den of lions, and then you don't know what the lions are going to do, and so it makes you so scared. Or you're told you're going to be addressing a group of wild human beings who have spears in their hand, who don't understand the language you're going to speak. The import of your speech and the purpose of your speech is to appeal to their conscience on why they should not kill you, but you know they don't understand your language. They are going to kill you eventually. That is the kind of uncertainty people have when they speak in public. So two things, your personality and your uncertainty of public speaking. Sometimes too, the formality of the program adds up to it. You'll notice that when you are amongst your friends, there are people who are very good with arguing. When you're amongst your friends, you can make very good arguments. You can argue so well. And some of them will even recommend that, hey, why don't you join the debating society? Why don't you speak in public? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? But then the moment it is time for a presentation, and the lecturer decides that everybody in the class should come in a formal attire, and you're also there in a tuxedo, ready to give that speech, you realize that it becomes more difficult to give the speech. So the formality of the occasion also counts, also contributes to your uncertainty, because it is not an arena that you feel so comfortable with. It is not a place, and it is not something that you keep practicing. But when you are in your casual clothes, when you are in your room, when you are in that area of your comfort, it becomes easy for you to communicate. So as part of the uncertainty, there is that aspect of formality. The big question is, how? How do we overcome our fear of public speaking? So the first point you need to note down is preparation. Now this point has been noted as one of the most important steps of addressing your fear of public speaking, even if personality-wise, you are supposed to be afraid of public speaking, or you're supposed to be introverted, or you're supposed to be a shy person. So, when you get that public speaking engagement, or when you get that public speaking appointment, the first thing you need to know is you're supposed to prepare for that public speaking engagement. By preparation, I mean putting everything into consideration concerning how you're going to give that big speech on that day. First, you must know what you're supposed to talk about, or the purpose of your speech. You must know if your speech is supposed to inform people, if your speech is supposed to entertain people, or if your speech is supposed to influence people. You must know all of those things. If you do not clearly understand the message that you are supposed to deliver on that day, if you are not too comfortable with the message you're supposed to deliver on that day, you are going to have a very big problem trying to convince people and even feeling comfortable behind the podium which you're supposed to stand behind. So the first thing to do is to know your message, understand your message, and feel comfortable about your message. The second thing is to have a certain analysis or a certain understanding or a certain perception of the people you are going to be speaking to. So for instance, you are running for a position, which quite a number of people here are doing. You want to have a certain impression and a certain understanding of people who are likely to show up. I'll give you a very good example. A few years ago when I was running for PRO, in this university, we were supposed to deliver or speak on our manifestos at Auditorium 900. Now the general perception is that the people who want to make a lot of noise those who follow you and chase you around, those who are going to come around when you are distributing the yogurts and the rest, they are less likely to show up at Auditorium 900 when you are delivering your manifesto. Those who want to show up for your manifesto are people who want to gain an understanding of your manifesto. So, at that juncture, you need to know that your speech is supposed to inform, and your speech is supposed to have a certain level of intellectualism. Because if your speech does not inform that audience, then you failed. The big problem that most people have is they are delivering a speech and they are making a presentation in one direction, and the audience is in another direction. They're expecting you to say something, and you're saying another thing. I remember back in Infantin, I'm sure Eben would remember, we had people running for the position of dining hall prefect. Now, in a boys' school like Infantin School, I know that people still have the perception of our school that, oh, Infantin boys they are something, they are John, yeah, and they want to be intellectual. But then, while people were delivering their manifestos, someone running for dining hall prefect, addressing a crowd of wild boys who want to hear something, came and was talking and giving us an analysis about how the bowls are sometimes dirty, how food is insufficient, and he gave a very good speech, very formal speech. And then he was done, and then the boys just clapped, and then he went to sit down. I'm still talking about how to connect with your audience and reduce that pressure you feel with yourself. Now, there was this one guy, this great guy, who came to the stage and said, and he was also big. We'll talk about all of that, how, you add up and build up to your credibility as a speaker. There was a fat guy, mounted the podium, and said, well, you guys know how it feels when there is no food in the dining hall. I'm going to make sure that stops. And then the boys start shouting. He spoke for 2 minutes, and the conclusion of his speech was, let there be food. And then the crowd responded, and there was food. And then everybody was making noise. You need to know the kind of people you are speaking to. Sometimes, in a formal place like this, I know, just like you didn't respond, if I say let there be food, because of that first girl sitting beside you, you're gonna, some of you can say, and there was, let there be food. Yeah, and there was food. But because of, a few things, people may not be able to respond. But in a situation like that, you'd realize that the boys are charged, and so they want to hear something. So first thing you need to know, you need to have a message. And my friend who was running for Daniel Prefect had a message. His message was, there's insufficient food. So let there be food, and there was food. The second one was, he knew the people he was speaking to. The people he was speaking to were people who wanted something to make noise about. That's naturally the characteristic of boys. You need to know that. You need to give them that. And while you are giving the people what they want to hear, and you are still communicating the appropriate message, it helps you, the speaker, to feel comfortable. Because while you deliver a speech and you have people just staring at you like that, as if they don't care, as if they don't know what you're even talking about, it builds up to the pressure and the anxiety. Makes you, that's where you start asking yourself those questions. Why is she looking at me like that? Why are they not nodding? All of those things begin to play up in your mind. It even puts down your energy and affects your whole presentation. So you need to know what you'll be talking about, who you'll be speaking to. The third thing is to try and have an idea of where you'll be speaking. If you know you're going to be speaking at a Sakawa conference room, I think you should try and make an effort to pass by the conference room, try and navigate the area, try and look at where you'd position yourself when you're speaking. Try and look at where people will be seated, try and look at where the eye contact and where the perception and all the viewing is going to come from. It adds up to it. And I gave you the example. You are very likely to win an argument in your room than in another person's room. You'd have people, there have been several situations where we're making an argument in a room. You have somebody making very strong arguments, and so because of that, and because of the fact that he's a village champion, you carry him on to another room to go and face the boss there. But then you get to that other room, and your champion loses the argument, primarily because he was in a room he was not comfortable with. So you need to know where you'll be speaking. It will do you a lot of good. So for most of you who are running for positions, and you know you'll be delivering a speech out of your 900, you should not, and it's not going to be comfortable for you if your first time of standing on that platform at the 900 is that day you'll be delivering the speech. It would add up to the pressure, it would add up to the anxiety, and you're going to have a big problem on that day. So 3 things. First, know what you'll be talking about, also know who you'll be speaking to, and then you need to also know where you'll be speaking. The second is practice. They say practice makes perfect. So you need to practice. Sometimes, and we do that a lot in our debate society, people do not necessarily have the chance to practice what they are going to say. We have that kind of public speaking that's supposed to be spontaneous and impromptu. So we get to you, and then we just give you a topic, you have just a few minutes prepared, and then you deliver that speech. But then, if you're here because of that presentation you're supposed to make, if you're here because of that big speech you're supposed to make, I'm sure you know that most of those speeches would have prior information a few days or a few weeks beforehand, and you'll be given some time to prepare for that speech. The issue is you need to practice the speech. Everybody practices their speech. I've seen Obama practice his speech in the White House when he was president. I've seen Joel Osteen practice his speech, and he's made various commentaries on practice, the importance of practice. Nobody would jump in front of you. I wouldn't even jump in front of even a small group like you without practicing what I'm supposed to talk about. So you need to practice. And so when you have that presentation you're supposed to make in class, you need to take the opportunity to practice. And just like I mentioned, you need to practice in an environment that gives you an idea or gives you a feeling of what is going to happen on the real day. So it's quite unfortunate sometimes that when you have a public speaking engagement in a conference room like this, you may not have the luxury of having the keys to the place to navigate the area and look at how you'll be speaking there. But you could try another place. You can try speaking to your friends in a place that's not necessarily comfortable for you. All we need to see and have is that feeling of uncomfortability, so that you know how you're going to deal with that feeling. For me, the rule is if I'm going to deliver a 30-minute speech, I think I need to start practicing a few weeks earlier, because that is what is going to contribute to the ability to speak so well. Because people care about what you are going to speak about. And in this situation, people are paid to hear the information you are supposed to give them, and you need to deliver on what you promised to give them. The second is, aside the fact that you need to practice in an environment that reminds you of where you'll be speaking, you also need to rehearse frequently. So you can't just sit down and then practice just once and then show up like Samson, who just wake up at the sight and at the point of hearing the Philistines are around and just break the chains off and then fight them. These Philistines are still strong, and God has abandoned you, so you need to practice. And we're also going to get into all of those issues about people who, or things in public speaking that people feel are their gods. Some people make the podium their god, and so they hold on to it as their god, that God should help them, the podium should help them. But in the end, it's just you and the audience. So you need to rehearse frequently. You need to also make sure that you practice in an environment that is similar to the one that you're speaking. Now, while you consider the theory and the technique and the importance of practice, you need to remember that there are 2 simple tools that will become your friend while you practice. The first tool is a clock, and the second tool is a mirror. These are simple, right? You can easily get one of these on the market. The mirror is supposed to help you monitor yourself as to the time you are supposed to speak. The challenge is, for very nervous speakers, they are likely to speak so fast and claim that, well, that's their speaking style. But then, how does it feel when you go for a program, someone is supposed to speak and give a very important speech, and the person speaks for 5 minutes out of 20 minutes, when they could have delivered the same speech in that 20 minutes, and they'll just claim That is how I speak. So you need to have a clock while you practice, so that you know the amount of time you have. You know when and how to pause, when and how to keep silent, when and how to manage that speech to fit into the time that you've been given. It won't make any sense if you're given a presentation and you've been given a certain amount of time to deliver that presentation, and then you end up spending far less than that time. As a matter of fact, for the public speaking competitions that we run as a debate society, we place some premium on the amount of time you spend. Even though we believe that most of the very fine speeches have been remarkably short, we believe that most of the time it is slightly unfair when you've been given close to 7 minutes to deliver a public speech and you end up spending just 1. The impression is you may not have adequately covered enough on your subject matter. So prepare or practice with a clock. The second tool, like I mentioned, is the mirror. You cannot practice without the mirror. The mirror would help you to know which mannerisms you're supposed to put in place. There are times when you need to place emphasis on something that we talk about. Now, note what I just did. There are times where you need to place emphasis on the things to talk about. And look at this one. There are times where you need to place emphasis on the things to talk about. Which one places emphasis on the things you're supposed to talk about? So it's the mirror that's going to help you, because most of the time you're so nervous, you may not even realize that your mannerisms are not corresponding to the speech you're trying to deliver. People get so nervous, they would want to probably put their hands in their pocket, or they would want to cling to the podium, all in the bid to have somebody to save them. And I told you, when you are faced with the fear of public speaking and you're there, like my experience, the last thing that comes to your head is, somebody, please save me. And so most of the time when they are calling for somebody to help them, they usually want to find that person in their pocket or on the podium or somewhere else. But the mirror will help you monitor all of those mannerisms and all of those actions so you don't end up destroying your speech. Another thing that will do you a lot of help, a lot of good, which is a very important thing I want you to note, is the importance of practicing your introduction and your conclusion. These are very important. The body of your speech is the very important part where your message is found. And the body of your speech should be simple. It should not contain too many big words to confuse people because you're communicating. But the importance of focusing or practicing your introduction and your conclusion is in the sense that there are two effects that these components of your speech will bring to people. The effect of your introduction is what we call the primacy effect. And the effect of your conclusion is the recency effect. Now, the primacy effect is what is going to get people hooked up to your speech, going to get them to understand your speech and eager to know what exactly you want to talk about in the body of your speech. And then the conclusion, which is going to bring the recency effect, is what is going to enable people to fully understand what you're trying to communicate and what's going to help people to remember that speech that you have delivered. So it is quite easy for you to build momentum when you have a grasp of the introduction and the conclusion, because it helps you build a momentum from the known to the known, which covers and encompasses that slightly unknown, which is in the form of the body, because you want to do or deliver your speech or your presentation without looking at too many slides or looking at too many forms of assistance, because that can be very distracting. When people are looking at you and are listening to your speech, most of the time you want to focus on you, you want to focus on eye contact. But if you refer to your material so much, it can be a problem. And that's why I will not prescribe reading a speech. For people who are actually seated here, it would be great for you to deliver the speech. Sometimes we need to refer if the content of the speech is quite technical. We're going to go into all of those things about the body of your speech. So a very important thing is for you to practice. Practice in an environment that looks like the environment that you'll be speaking in. Practice more, rehearse often, and then practice so that you know the time you're supposed to spend, know how your mannerisms are going to be put in place, and practice your introduction and your conclusion, which is also very, very important. The next thing is for you to think positively. It is part of the feeling of uncertainty for people to think negatively about the people they are going to be speaking to. It's part of the pressure. You see nicely dressed people, and they're all staring at you for that information. And sometimes you may have some people seated there, and you may think that they don't like you. Some people have their own issues. Somebody may be coming from their place of abode to your conference with a problem, and they may naturally have a frown on their face. Well, it's not supposed to be your problem. It's not supposed to put you down. You're supposed to think positively, because the first thing you should know is that people want you to succeed. You don't go to a church and expect the pastor to give a very poor or sad or bad sermon. You want the pastor to succeed, because if his sermon is very good and inspirational, you leave feeling inspired. So one thing you should know as a speaker is that people who are listening to you want you to succeed. If you've spoken before, you probably realize that the people who were looking at you attentively, with some of them nodding their head probably in agreement to what you're saying. Most of the time, they are focusing on what you have to say. So you need to think positively before your speech. Just know you're the man of the moment, you're the woman of the moment, and people are looking up to you for information, and you've got to deliver that information. They're not monsters or some people with... I'm very particular about spears, because the day I spoke to those 5 people, they suddenly looked like a group of people with spears ready to throw them at me. But then that's not the case. Think positively about the people you're supposed to speak to. The next is what I call visualization or focus. So while you think positively, try and focus on very, very good things. And try and visualize what is going to happen the next day. So for instance, you have a speaking engagement tomorrow, or you have a speaking engagement in 2 days. Try and visualize the speech. So for instance, I'm supposed to speak. I feel comfortable using a lot of political examples because this place is slightly politically charged. So you're supposed to deliver your manifesto. Try and visualize people clapping for you. Try and think about that. Try and think about you giving a very good speech that people are going to feel happy about. I do that a lot. And I'm sure my friends will tell you, Kwame will tell you, before I deliver a speech, I usually have the idea in my head and I practice it. And I tell myself, well, this sounds good. If you don't clap, you have a problem. So try and visualize the speech. It adds up to the confidence. It helps you build yourself up. Think positively about the speech. Visualize what's going to happen the next day and try and see good stuff happening on that day. If all you focus on is negativity, it will add up to your low energy. You won't be able to deliver anything meaningful. It's very, very important for you to do all of that. So apart from thinking positively, you need to visualize, like I mentioned, focusing on yourself succeeding. But there are also some things that you can do whilst you are delivering your speech. Most of the ones I've mentioned are stuff you can do before your speech. While you deliver your speech, you need to make sure that you're feeling relaxed. One of the fine ways to feel relaxed is to take your time and to pause sometimes. One way of doing it is, for instance, you are supposed to deliver a speech, you've got a note like I probably have. You could indicate on your notes that at this point you pause or you slow down. So you can write this down. You need to anticipate your reactions. You know yourself. You know the points at which you're going to start speaking so fast. You know the points at which you're going to start feeling so scared. You know the points at which you start feeling, well, this speech is beginning to drain my audience. You need to slow down. And sometimes because of the pressure and because of the nervousness, it becomes so difficult to slow down. Nothing stops you, no rule bars you from writing on your notes that at this point, I will slow down. You could also indicate at this point, I will smile. So that whilst you speak, you know that there's this very important point that you can't make without smiling. And there's this important point you can't make without giving a sad face or frowning. So for instance, I told you about the unpleasant experience of meeting my ex from 2011. It is not an experience I can smile about. But then, the experience of meeting my girlfriend from 2017, it's an experience I can smile about. I don't need to note it down in my book. I'll smile about it anyway. So you need to know and anticipate your reactions, and if possible, you can note them down. The next thing is a very important skill and technique, which I would also want to term easing into eye contact. Eye contact is one of the main reasons why people are afraid of public speaking. Some people cannot look at people in the eye. And there are a lot of theories, so many theories. People have their own theories about how to get into eye contact. The weirdest theory I heard, and the person who uses that theory won a public speaking competition I was involved in. So you probably want to note that down. She said she imagines everybody seated there as pineapple. So you could decide to imagine those here as pineapple, you could decide to imagine those here as oranges. And so while you speak, from the shapes of their heads and all that. So while you speak, you don't care if the pineapple or the orange is looking at you in some way. It helps you to get your speech across. But then hey, what if while you're speaking, you miss out on it? All of a sudden they turn into human beings with spears and they begin to fly them at you. It's not going to work effectively. You need to ease into eye contact. While you ease into eye contact, you can begin by looking at the top of their heads. Because people want to feel like you're looking at them. One of the ways of communicating, and it's part of communication, you can't easily speak to somebody who is not looking at you in the eye. Like for instance, try it on a one-on-one basis. You're having a conversation with someone, they're constantly looking somewhere. It's very distracting. You begin to feel like they're probably not confident about what they're talking about, or something else is happening. So if a speaker is talking to you at a conference, for instance, and then all I keep doing, if I'm speaking to you at this seminar and all I keep doing is looking here, so I can't look in your faces. So public speaking is, chances are you'll all be looking there. But we need to communicate. We need to share eye contact. So you can begin by looking at the top of their heads. And it helps you a lot if they are wearing spectacles. Because if they are wearing spectacles, you could probably look on the top of the rim of their spectacles. So that way, you're not necessarily looking into their eyes, which can be fearful at times. But then, you are giving them the impression that you are looking into their eyes. And that is a very, very important component of speaking in public. So there are various techniques through which you can speak in public. And there are various techniques that we can explore. But for today, these are the very few techniques that I'll be sharing with you. We'll have other speeches, we'll have other presentations. I'll be sharing with you how to set your speech apart. I'll also be sharing with you how to speak in public. But this concerns how you can overcome your fear of public speaking. And I'm hoping that if perchance you're supposed to speak at a conference or a program and you meet your ex-girlfriend, she's not going to tell you, wait, or hey, are you going to be speaking on how to die in front of the audience? She's going to tell you, well, I know you. You wow audiences. You're a good speaker. Even though we've broken up, I still believe in you. And that is going to be very impressive. Thank you very much.